Hi, welcome to Open Door Yoga. My name is Michelle and this video is part of my Yoga for Everyone series. More specifically, we're going to be focused on students who have asthma and 5 different inefficient breathing patterns that are associated with asthma. And now, to be fair to all of you out there with asthma, you are not the only ones that tend to fall into these breathing patterns. Many of us fall into these 5 different inefficient breathing patterns. And because of that, this video is not only going to be helpful for you as a yoga instructor working on students with asthma, but also working with your general population students as well. Let's get started. Number 1, breath holding. I'm going to start with breath holding because I think it's the easiest for all of us to understand. We have all, at some point in our lives, intentionally held our breath and are comfortable or familiar with the physical sensation that kind of comes up in our body when we can't exhale quite as quickly as we would like. Now, in a natural breath pattern, what happens is we exhale and there's a pressure system change in our lungs. And that pressure system change allows air to naturally flow back in, the lungs expand, and that's our natural inhale. After our inhale, our lungs are filled with air and there's another pressure system change. So air naturally flows back out. And that cycle repeats. And so for much of the day, we're not really thinking about breathing because that pressure system change controls everything. Now, what happens in students with asthma or students that don't have asthma, when we hold our breath, it tends to be after an inhale. And when you hold your breath after an inhale, it impacts the efficiency of that exhale. It's not quite as smooth, it's not quite as efficient. And so it's a little bit harder to feel in control of your breath. And if you don't believe me, give it a try. Take a nice deep inhale, retain that breath for a reasonable amount of time, just until you start to feel that sensation. Please, nobody hold their breath for too long. And then release. It's hard. And so what's nice about yoga is there's a natural emphasis on the breath. So for students who tend to hold their breath, practicing a little bit of pranayama at the beginning or end of a practice is a great strategy or a great idea to help work on this. Even just a typical asana practice with reminders to flow through poses at the pace of your breath and to naturally transition that breath from inhale to exhale is going to be helpful for these students as well. Number 2, chest breathing. In chest breathing, on our inhales, we tend to fill up the upper and middle portions of our chest, of our lungs, and don't really get the air fully down into our lower portions. So we're not getting a nice full breath. We've all had these experiences where we are rushing too quickly out of a door or turning a corner too sharp and we almost run into somebody. You guys know that quick, shallow breath that we all experience? That's chest breathing. So now there's a couple reasons why people may develop more chronic chest breathing, whether they have asthma or not. The first one is poor posture. This is something we are all guilty of from time to time, right? It's that I'm slumped down in my chair at night or on my couch, I'm looking down at my phone, or I'm just spending a lot of time typing and I'm looking down at my keys. It's the slump posture through my upper back body. And when that happens, I'm pushing my low ribs down into my diaphragm. Well, my diaphragm, that's my main breathing muscle. That's the main muscle behind respiration. And so if we're pushing down into it, we can't use that muscle as efficiently. And so we're going to naturally breathe more into our chest. And if this is chronic, not only is our diaphragm going to get weaker because we're not using it as much, we are also elongating the muscles in our back body while tightening the ones through our chest. And if we're tightening the ones through our chest, it's going to be really hard to open up and get back into that diaphragm. So what yoga can do is twofold. We work on posture all the time with asana practices, right? Pulling those shoulders back, opening up through our heart space. That's going to be great for someone who's a chest breather, within reason and within their comfort limits, right? It's also going to be helpful to work on a little bit of that pranayama focus on the physical sensations of filling up that lower third portion of your lungs. And we know there's a few different practices that can help us get there. The second reason why somebody may be chronically breathing more into their chest is stress. Prolonged periods of stress or even acute levels of stress can cause somebody to breathe more into their chest. And the problem with that is that it's a stressful sensation. It doesn't feel good to breathe into your chest. And so that can cause kind of this cycle where you keep breathing into your chest and then it feels uncomfortable. So then it keeps going because you're just in this period of stress. And so again, what yoga can do is to really help focus on that natural breath pattern, slowing down our body, especially breathing patterns, pranayama practices that focus on the vagus nerve, that central nervous system. Really slowing things down is going to help somebody who tends to breathe a little bit more heavily through their chest. Number 3, mouth breathing. Now, I'm sure we've all heard about mouth breathing, and I can guarantee you every single one of us at one point or another in our lives have been a mouth breather. What happens in mouth breathing is we're breathing air in and out entirely through our mouth, so we're not really using our nose at all. And I can tell you, I have a lot of hobbies. One of the things I like to do is run. And about 5 to 10 minutes into every single run, I have to fight every urge in my body to breathe solely through my mouth, inhales and exhales. Because when your body starts to get taxed or fatigued, we want to get as much air as possible, as soon as possible. And so there's nothing inherently wrong about mouth breathing. But we breathe a lot throughout the day, and our nose can offer a lot of benefits. First off, it has a natural filtration system. And second of all, it warms up the air. So air on the outside of our body, if it passes through our nose, is going to have a tendency to be less irritating to our throat and our lungs than air that's breathed in solely through our mouth. So again, yoga is great for breath control. Pranayama is a huge element of yoga. It's incorporated into most, even gym yoga classes. There's a mention on the breath. And so keeping this in mind and keeping our cues focused or coming back to the breath at least is going to be helpful for somebody who has a tendency to breathe in and out through their mouth alone. Number 4, inhalations that are stronger than exhalations. For many people with asthma, it can feel more difficult or more uncomfortable to exhale breath out of our body than to inhale breath into our body. And so now you may think, well, what's the big deal? As long as we can bring air into the body, that's what matters, right? Well, not exactly. Imagine it this way. If you breathe in so much air, like this much amount of air, if this makes any sense, and exhale not quite as much, well, that leaves some air stuck and trapped in your lungs. And that makes it so there's less space for your next inhale. You can't bring as much new breath into your lungs. So not only are your inhales not full, but that old breath, that kind of stale breath that's been hanging out for a while, is going to impact the quality of the oxygen that we can then send from our lungs to support the rest of our body. So for these students, we really want to incorporate pranayama practices that encourage us to exhale completely before getting to our new breath. And that's going to be really helpful. Number 5, high rates of breathing. Many people with asthma tend to breathe at a higher rate than the general population. And just like the last scenario, this may not seem like a big deal. If we're inhaling a lot, we must be getting a lot of oxygen. Yes, but if we're exhaling at a really high rate as well, we might be low on carbon dioxide, and we need both. Having both together is what's going to help our body to transport the oxygen a little bit more efficiently to the muscles, cells, and tissues of our body, those parts of our body that need it to function. And now if our body's not getting that oxygen in that efficient way, that's going to lead our body into periods of stress. And what happens when we're stressed? We breathe faster because we think Breathing faster is going to get us more oxygen. And so we end up in this cycle where we're never getting enough breath. We're never getting enough mixture of oxygen and carbon dioxide to breathe in an efficient way and to serve our body well. And so, again, we're going to come back to pranayama, encouraging this individual to slow down, even incorporating it into an asana practice that you do with your general population, moving in a slower rate and encouraging this individual to breathe at the rate of their movement, right? So allowing their breath to control their movement, but moving in a very intentional and methodical way. That's going to be really helpful for these individuals, these students. Thanks for watching this video. There are lots of different inefficient breathing patterns out there. These are the main 5 that I associate with asthma and that I think are most common. But if you know of others, or if you have questions about others, leave me a comment below. My true goal is for you as a yoga instructor to feel more confident and more comfortable working with people with all different bodies and abilities. If you have any questions or any requests, let me know. Have a great rest of your day. Namaste.